However, after unleashing an attack that destroyed his life soul, Salah's body starts to deteriorate. He grinned weakly at his companions before vanishing into a mist of shadows. Mira shed tears as she saw Salah sacrifice himself. Mira, on the other hand, believes that she should not pass up the opportunity that Salah has provided for her. No time to be sad. Kale replied strongly. The heart of heaven is before us. We need to take it. Aiden jumped for the artifact, but Ifrit, although being severely injured, refused to give up. With his remaining strength, he fired the final attack, a massive burst of fire aimed directly at Aiden. When Kale saw the danger, he jumped in front of Aiden without hesitation, sacrificing himself by using his body as a shield. The flames hit Kale hard, causing his body to burn gradually. But Kale does not intend to stop at all, for he knows that this is the only chance to beat Ifrit. Kale, breathless, looked to Aiden. Do not worry about me. Take the artifact. The world needs you. Aiden grasped the heart of heaven, his heart heavy. As soon as he touched it, the relic emanated a dazzling light that filled the room. They have now obtained the heart of the sky, which contains the essence of life. When it was all over, the group was down to only 3 members, Aiden, Mira, and Riven. They stood in the center of the now silent room, staring at the area where Salah and Kale had given their lives. The heart of heaven is in our hands, but at a prohibitively high cost, Mira stated, her voice filled with grief. Aiden grasped the relic firmly. They gave up their lives to ensure the world's survival. We must not waste their sacrifices. With heavy steps, they began to leave Mount Ignis, carrying the heart of heaven in the remembrance of the sacrifice that had eternally transformed them. However, Azrael's cry rang in the distance, signifying that the true war had only just begun. The troop withdrew to the plains, leaving Mount Ignis in ruins and silence. Aiden gently grasped the heart of heaven, but even though it was in his hands, he could sense the enormous energy contained within. It was like clutching a star shrouded in gloomy cloud. Mira, an expert in ancient magic, studied the relic attentively. We can't use its true power yet, he stated while inspecting the glowing patterns on the artifact's surface. This heart of heaven is still sealed. How do we open it? Riven inquired, his eyes wide with concern. Mira took a big breath. According to mythology, this seal can only be opened in the Astralise temple, where the holy guardians crafted this artifact. But breaching the seal necessitates the ultimate sacrifice. One's soul must connect with the power of the heart of heaven. Another sacrifice? Aiden clenched his hands. We have lost Salah and Kale. Isn't this enough? Mira looked at him sympathetically. If we don't open it, Azrael will destroy the entire world. It doesn't matter if it's enough or not, Aiden. It's a question of what to do. The voyage to the Astralise temple is not simple. The temple was built on the world's highest mountain summit, above the clouds, where the frigid wind combined with bone-penetrating magical energy. On their voyage, the gang faces a variety of challenges, including an unusual snowstorm and attacks from shadow monsters dispatched by Azrael to stop them. Another sacrifice? Aiden clenched his hands. We have lost Salah and Kale. Isn't this enough? Mira looked at him sympathetically. If we don't open it, Azrael will destroy the entire world. It doesn't matter if it's enough or not, Aiden. It's a question of what to do. Despite their tiredness, they made it to the temple door. The icy wind blasted across the crest of Mount Astralise, creating an eerie atmosphere. The temple of Astralise rose majestically before them, challenging anybody who approached to demonstrate their bravery. The crystal pillars that shone in the moonlight appeared to carry incredible ancient mysteries. It's not just about breaking the seal, Mira explained, her voice nearly drowned out by the wind. The sky heart is a living organism. He will put us to the test before giving us his power. Aiden stared at the relic with skepticism. If he lives, does that mean he can fight us too? Not fighting, Mira clarified, but determining whether we are worthy of its power. And each test will eat away at our souls gradually. When the heart of heaven was put on the altar, the temple shook fiercely. The floor underneath them shattered, and their surroundings altered. They now stood on a wide battlefield, surrounded by thousands of shadow warriors headed by a massive figure in black armor known as the Guardian of Courage, and their first test had begun. The figure swung his tower-sized sword, unleashing a black energy that rendered them nearly unable to breathe. Only true courage can pass this test, the guard repeated. Who will face me? Aiden advanced without reluctance, despite the fact that his body was shaking. I will fight you. The battle was ferocious. Aiden's strikes felt like they were aimed at a mountain, yet the guard's attacks were powerful enough to shatter the ground beneath him. However, Aiden refused to back down. With each wound he takes, he recalls Salas and Kale's sacrifice, as well as his responsibility to safeguard the planet. When the guard swung his final sword, Aiden leapt and drove his blade into the guard's chest. The blue light flared brightly, and the guard slumped, leaving behind his final words. Your courage has been proven. Heavenly Heart accepts you. Aiden collapses on the ground, tired yet alive. After the first test was done, the battleground vanished, leaving only an endless desert. In the middle of the desert stood a massive tree that appeared to be about to wither. To bring life back, something must be sacrificed, repeated a voice. Under the tree, there were 3 goblets filled with golden liquid. Mira moved closer, and a voice spoke directly to her thoughts. Drink one of these chalices, and the tree will spring to life. However, the soul who drinks it will be bonded to the tree and become a part of it forever. Mira gazed at the goblet, concerned. Does this mean death? Not always, the voice replied. But you will lose a big part of yourself, your memories, your feelings, or even your strength. Riven stepped forward. I'll do it. This is little in comparison to what we have sacrificed. Mira stopped him. No. You have made tremendous sacrifices for all of us. Let me do it. Mira drank the gold liquid. His body suddenly shone with a dazzling light, and the withering tree transformed into a magnificent golden tree. Mira did, however, fall to the ground, losing the most of her magic. Your sacrifice is accepted, the voice continued. Heavenly Heart's power is getting closer. The final test sends them into a room full of mirrors. In each mirror, they see a different version of themselves, their past, crimes, and deepest fears. Purity of heart does not imply sinlessness, the voice from the mirror stated. But being able to accept yourself as you are, including your darkness. Each of them must confront his own reflection. Aiden stood in front of a giant mirror in a dark room, the faint lighting reflecting his figure. But what appeared in the mirror wasn't him at the time. There stood a much younger man than him, his body quivering slightly and his eyes filled with anxiety and uncertainty. What's this? Aiden mumbled as the hairs on the back of his neck bristled. The young man in the mirror gazed at him accusingly. Have you forgotten? Have you forgotten who you used to be? Aiden was stunned. He recognized the face. That was him years ago, before he mustered the fortitude to go on. He wasn't always the man he is now. I'm not like that anymore, Aiden replied, attempting to convince himself. The young man chuckled sarcastically. Really? Are you certain? I remember how we used to avoid difficult situations. How you preferred to stay silent rather than argue. Do you think you have changed? No. I am still inside you. You're just hiding me. Aiden clenched his fists, and his eyes welled with tears. I've fought to leave you. I've learned to face my fears. But you are afraid of yourself, the young man said in a chilly tone. You are frightened to recall what it is like to be vulnerable, fearful to fail, and afraid of being mocked. Your entire courage is nothing more than a facade. You know I'm correct. Aiden felt his chest tightening. Those comments wounded more than he realized. No. I'm not a coward anymore, he muttered, his voice barely audible. The young man moved closer to the mirror and stared at it closely. Prove it. I will not leave until you prove me wrong. What should I do? Face your fears. Not by avoiding me, but by accepting me, because without me, you would not be who you are today. Aiden was silent. He recognized what he'd been avoiding. He can't get rid of the part of himself he despises since it's what drives him on. He stretched out for the mirror and touched its chilly surface. Okay, he responded, his voice wavering. I accept myself. Even you. Because without fear, courage is useless. The young man smiled weakly before slowly disappearing from the mirror. All that remained was Aiden's reflection. But this time, he saw a whole person, no longer hiding from his own shadow. Although the mirror was suddenly empty, Aiden's heart felt richer than before. After Aiden. Mira confronts her former greedy self. He shut himself in an ancient, dusty library, the pages of a black book strewn around him. In the past, immortality was an obsession that tore at his heart. He researched old magic regardless of the number of souls sacrificed. His strength increased, but so did the emptiness inside him. However, as Azrael's invasion arrives and she watches the devastation caused by uncontrollable forces, Mira begins to wonder what she is really looking for. In the struggle against Azrael's men, he defended a small village he had no idea about. Each spell he cast brought both anguish and new hope. When someone labeled him savior, he couldn't help but remain mute. His goals had shifted, but he was unwilling to accept it. Mira gradually learns that her current struggle is not for immortality, but for the world that has given her reason to fight. He is a wizard who was formerly greedy but has since discovered a cause far larger than himself. Meanwhile, Riven confronts himself, who used to be an assassin. Riven wiped the blood off her blade, her expression flat. He was well aware of his reputation as a ruthless killer and a callous war machine. He never attempted to dispute it. His past is indeed terrible, with grim missions and numerous lives in his hands. However, everything changes when he meets them, people who regard him as more than simply a relic from the past. They addressed him as brother, entrusting him with their life. He initially felt inadequate, but gradually began to feel that he might improve. When a big conflict erupts, Riven finds herself on the front lines, defending those she considers her new family. When he faced the enemy, he no longer felt hollow. His sword is more than just a weapon, it represents his commitment to protect people who are important to him. His history may have been dismal, yet he chooses to move on, demonstrating that even someone like him has the right to discover hope. When they acknowledged their darkness, the mirrors cracked and a portal appeared. You have proven the purity of your hearts, the voice said. Sky Heart Seal has opened. When they returned to the temple, the heart of heaven shone with a brilliant golden light. The energy poured throughout their bodies, providing them with new power. However, the artifact emitted a pleasant yet forceful voice. With great power, comes great responsibility. Are you prepared to confront Azrael, even if it means the end of your lives? Aiden examined Mira and Riven. They nodded without hesitation. We are ready. With their newfound abilities, celestial courage, divine wisdom, and lethal precision, they leave the Temple of Astralis, ready for the ultimate confrontation against Azrael, who is now aware that his menace to the world is on the approach of extinction. The sky above the kingdom of Azrael was blood red, with purple lightning storms swirling around its great fortress. Aiden, Mira, and Riven, who had gained the power of the sky's heart, stood in front of Azrael's headquarters, the gathering point for darkness. This is the end, Aiden muttered, clutching his sword, which was now gleaming with the energy of the heart of heaven. No matter what happens, we must not back down. Mira and Riven nodded. We will solve this together, Mira answered. Thousands of shadow warriors emerged from the darkness as they entered the fortress, each brandishing weapons wrapped in dense purple energy. Aiden yelled and stepped forward to lead the onslaught. Mira raised her staff, unleashing a storm of blue flames that engulfed the initial wave of foes. Riven rushed at breakneck speed, leaping from one shadow to another, shattering them with a crossbow laced with silver light. However, troops continued to appear indefinitely. "They won't stop until we reach Azrael," Mira exclaimed. She then formed a big protective barrier around them, preventing the enemy's attacks. "Aiden, open your way." Aiden swung his sword with the strength of the heart of heaven, causing a surge of energy to break the ground and shatter hundreds of shadows all at once. The path to the main fortress was clear, but Aiden's energy was depleting. "Come on. We need to hurry," Riven replied, pulling them forward. 3 gigantic guards in black armor stood in the fortress's great hall, blocking them. Each guard brandished massive weapons that appeared to be extensions of their bodies, including axes, spears, and enormous hammers. "We are the guardians of Azrael. You are not going any further." The combat starts with extraordinary speed and intensity. Riven squared off against the spear guard, utilizing her agility to avoid the deadly attacks. With a quick counterattack, he pierced the joints of the guard's armor, slowing his motions. Mira uses ice magic to immobilize the second guard's axe. However, the guard breaks the ice with violent assault, causing Mira to set up an illusion trap to deflect attention. Aiden fought the giant hammer guard, each attack causing shockwaves that broke the floor below them. With bravery and precision, he ultimately slices off the guard's hand, forcing it to fall. With their combined strength, the 3 guards were eventually defeated. "Azrael must know we're getting close," Mira remarked, panting. They entered the throne hall, where Azrael sat on his throne. A dark aura radiated from it, suppressing their souls. "You have come this far," Azrael said in a cold tone. "But you won't leave here alive." Azrael stood up, and with one movement, he created a storm of dark energy that enveloped the room. Azrael unleashed enormous power, forming a black lance of darkness that swirled across the air. And viciously attacked Mira. Mira also initiated the attack by mixing light and ice spells to dispel the darkness and generate an explosive wave that shook the chamber. However, Azrael raised his palm, causing a wall of shadows to absorb Mira's light energy. "I have surpassed all of you," Azrael hissed, whirling his palm and summoning millions of shadow shards that shot out like arrows. Aiden lunged forward, his blade turning red as he sliced through the fragments. "Don't be arrogant, Azrael," he exclaimed as he continued to strike. Riven took advantage of the chance, racing up the wall and sneaking up behind Azrael. He unleashed a barrage of lightning arrows, immobilizing Azrael's wings. One of the arrows hit one of Azrael's wings, inflicting a terrible wound. The attack elicited a tremendous growl from the Master of Darkness. Azrael, now infuriated, slammed both hands into the earth, unleashing a surge of dark energy that sent the 3 of them flying backward. "This world is mine, and you mere worms dare disturb my eternal peace," Azrael shouted. Pillars of darkness ascended from the floor, aiming at Mira, who was attempting to cast a healing spell. However, he was able to form a dome of light that briefly reflected Azrael's onslaught before collapsing from weariness. Meanwhile, Riven and Aiden worked together. "We have to attack it together," Riven stated. Aiden nodded and jumped into the air with his 2 blazing swords, while the Raven used black arrows to cover Azrael's view. Azrael summons a massive blade from the darkness and battles Aiden mercilessly. Azrael's every slice shook the room and caused fissures in the floor. Aiden was nearly overpowered, but he persisted, fighting each attack with fierce determination. Riven assaults Azrael with hundreds of light-like lightning arrows, directing a salvo into his head. His strike struck Azrael's helmet, fracturing it. Then Azrael attacked with a dark aura. A motion intended to conceal the opponent's view. And that move fell squarely on Riven. Riven, whose vision was fuzzy, was easily captured by Azrael, who hurled him to the ground with great force. With Mira severely injured and Riven barely conscious, Aiden is her only hope. He focused all of the heavenly heart's energy on his blade, which now shone brighter than before. "You may rule the darkness," Aiden stated in a trembling but determined tone. "But light always finds a way to win." Azrael unleashes his final attack, a spreading ball of evil energy that threatens to swallow the entire room. Aiden charged into the center of the attack, penetrating the evil energy and thrusting his blade into Azrael's core. A tremendous explosion erupted, illuminating the entire area. When the light faded, Azrael collapsed to the ground, his body slowly turning to dust. "No, this is impossible. I am immortal," he stated before leaving. Aiden drags Mira and Riven out of the castle as it collapses. The three made it outside the fortress just as the first sun emerged on the horizon, dispersing the veils of darkness that had blanketed the globe for many years. "We did it," Mira said through tears. When they arrived outside the fortress, the sun rose for the first time in many years, shattering the clouds of darkness that had hung over the sky. The earth is now free of Azrael's shadow. Aiden, Mira, and Riven return to their hometown as heroes. Even if the world returns to peace, they realize that their sacrifice will never be forgotten. The heart of heaven, again returned to its shrine, continues to glow as a beacon of hope and courage. A voice spoke in the darkness: "Darkness never truly disappears.